Our next witness to welcome is Mrs. Diane Pena.
Good evening. I'm Diane Pena. You may not recognize me because I'm not from around here. I'm visiting. I'm from First Lutheran Church in Galveston, Texas, an island on the Gulf of Mexico. The church was founded in 1825, and so it's an old congregation, and my purpose tonight is to let you know how my family got into that congregation. Before I begin, though, I want to applaud the beautiful diversity in this room. That it's not always been so, especially in my congregation. So I want to tell you tonight the story of how the Balduccis, the Macalusos, and the Peñas became Lutherans. It was kind of different. Of my 4 grandparents, 2 immigrated from Sicily, 1 from Italy, and 1 was born in the United States. Though born abroad, my 3 European grandparents were in the United States by the early 1800s. It was common for extended families of immigrants to live in the same area. Strength in numbers, I suppose. Now, these people were very European and clannish. They often lived and worked together. With surnames like Macaluso and Balducci, it was no guess that they were all Roman Catholics. Now, I'm not sure how my mother's father, Gino Vafrino Balducci, met my mother's mother, Cecilia Falcon. So already you see we're a little thread of where this is going. But I would guess that my German grandmother initially didn't fit in with this large Italian extended family of Roman Catholics. Nevertheless, they wanted to marry. However, they couldn't get married in the Roman Catholic Church unless Cecilia left her Lutheran Church and became a Roman Catholic. Now, for whatever reason, that didn't happen. I think it had something to do with being German, maybe. It's my grandmother, I can say these things. But anyway, they were married at First German Evangelical Lutheran Church in Galveston, Texas. Yes, that is still my home congregation. And we have since dropped German, but you get the idea of what that congregation was like at the time they married. Now, the effect of that was that my aunt, uncle, and my mother were raised in the Lutheran Church, where my grandmother continued to worship. My grandfather, excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church, never really joined the Lutheran Church, though I'm sure he would have been welcomed along with his wife and children. I never knew if it was because of pressure from his extended family or just lack of enthusiasm on his part, but I never knew him as a church goer. Now, my grandmother died young, 48 years old, and I never knew her. But her legacy was to raise good Lutheran children who in turn raised their families in the Lutheran Church. Now, some 30 years after her death, when my grandfather passed away, though never a member of our church, our pastor graciously performed services for his burial. It was as though the Lutheran Church continued to welcome him, even to the end. Now, history repeated itself with better results in the next 2 generations. My Lutheran mother, Joanne Balducci, married my then Roman Catholic father, Frank Macaluso, at First Lutheran Church in Galveston. My dad eventually joined the Lutheran Church and still belongs to the same congregation with us. Now later on, the next generation, I married my husband, Carlos Pena, another Roman Catholic, and he too became Lutheran. And a pretty good Lutheran too, I might add. I'm sure back then we looked quite different from the average Lutheran in those days, just as some of the other people around us might look quite different in our congregation. And we certainly had very different last names. We stood out. But it didn't seem to matter though. I've always felt right at home in the church that was welcoming to my grandparents when other churches were not. And that's how we became Lutherans.
Our scripture this evening comes from Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 35. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand, and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me." The word of the Lord.